Good morning and welcome, friends. There are many lodges all around the globe. Most of them meet on Sundays. Ours meets for a weekly presentation of a particular topic at 11 a.m. Sunday mornings. At the end of the meeting, questions are welcome. The first and third Sundays of the month, we're studying The Key to Theosophy by H.P. Blavatsky. On the 30th of this month, April, we have an outreach program at Silver Spring Library at 2 p.m. And we will be there for 1 hour. The Theosophical movement of the 19th century was a tremendous boon for the whole of humanity. The philosophy of the masters that could be given out to the general public was presented to the Western world by H.P. Blavatsky, the direct agent of the masters, through her writings, especially in Isis Unveiled and Secret Doctrine. These two books, plus all of the other writings in her other books, present the complete philosophy of Theosophy, and R.C. states that an edifice was built, it was beautiful and complete. What is expected of the students of Theosophy is to study the teachings as given, assimilate and promulgate it as given, because it is the closest statements that can be found written to truth. As the studying continues, transformation occurs within the student himself, enabling him to understand the meaning of the characters, the glyphs, signs in those books, which, when understood metaphysically, gives to the key to understanding the cosmos. This transformation that takes in the human being comes about as a result of not just study, but unselfishness and practice of the paramitas, which are the virtues necessary to live a moral life which leads to spiritual enlightenment. The United Lodge of Theosophists Declaration. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of Theosophy without professing attachment to any theosophical organization. It is loyal to the great founders of the Theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of Theosophy and the exemplification in practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among Theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis, and it aims to disseminate this idea among Theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as Theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization, and it welcomes to its association all those who are in accord with its declared purposes and who desire to fit themselves by study and otherwise to be better able to help and teach others. The true Theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. The following is the form signed by associates of the United Lodge of Theosophists. Being in sympathy with the purposes of this lodge, as set forth in its declaration, I hereby record my desire to be enrolled as an associate, it being understood that such association calls for no obligation on my part other than that which I myself determine. The reading is from the Voice of the Silence. Fear of disciple kills the will and stays all action. If lacking in Shila virtue, the pilgrim trips, and karmic pebbles bruise his feet along the rocky path. Be of sure foot, O candidate. In Shanti's essence bathe thy soul, for now thou dost approach the portal of that name, the gate of fortitude and patience. Close not thine eyes, nor lose thy sight of Dorje. Mara's arrows ever smite the man who has not reached Viraga. Beware of trembling. Beneath the breath of fear, the key of Shanti rusty grows. The rusty key refuseth to unlock. The transition required in the life of a student of Theosophy, is more than a change from selfish to unselfish ways, although nothing is accomplished without this. There is also a transition in the very idea of knowledge, and in where it is to be sought, how it is to be tested, and what is the result after it has been obtained. The self-reliance of which the teaching speaks is that born in man when he conceives and then confirms that human beings are luminous beings, each possessed of an inner vision such as belongs to the gods themselves. It is to this discovery that the world of symbolism invites us. Symbols are a path to that existence in which life and knowledge are one and inseparable. Now today's talk.
Morning, friends. The world of symbolisms and mythology immediately brings to mind a world where you have magic, goblins, demons, heroes, legends, allegories, magic carpets, journeys, some of which the first student alluded to, because the hero on his or her journey sometimes encounters fear, as was mentioned, and fear can stave or stop the hero on his or her quest. Now, there have been groups of people who use symbols just like fraternities and especially intelligence organizations. CIA. I was just this past week in the Spy Museum, and I came across a historical note how the first code book was by a Benedictine monk, and he wrote several words, and basically it was just telling someone to flee. So we have here this world of symbolism from various organizations, but one organization or one group shall I say, that has been employing symbols from time immemorial is the priesthood. Whoever, however, wherever they are worldwide, since they've been on the globe, and they have constructed a symbolic language, or some would say a sacred language, composed of glyphs, signs, allegories, and others things. We can look at, we'll go back to the biblical times, look at Jesus and his dark sayings about drink my blood, eat my flesh. These dark sayings, we know that he's not literal in saying what he's saying. So again, there's a meaning behind what has been expressed. Look at Paul stating about Abraham and his two sons, about them, that being an allegory. You can look at the Clement, the church father Clement of Alexander, stating that it is therefore requisite to hide the mystery of the wisdom of the Son of God. You know, this hiding. And so we see that they reveal but yet conceal. And why do they do that? We can also look at the Kabala, and they have a, as they speak, excuse me, here among the Jews, it's called gematria, and it's a practical division of the Kabbalah. It shows the numerical value of Hebrew words by summing up the values of the letters composing them. One of the methods arithmetical of exacting the hidden meaning from letters, words, and sentences. That's gematria. And then we can look at the Jesuits. HPB have here their symbology, their codes, and then also the Rosicrucians. So there is this attempt that we know and those that are without don't know. And just like Jesus said when asked about speaking in parables, why do you do so? And it says it's for those who are on the outside. This is giving. So essentially the symbol, the outer, is what's given for the masses, and the inner for those who have made a decision to pursue a life whereby one can grow and know what the inner is all about. Speaking of the spy, I was just interested in, just a sidetrack, this week came out that Harriet Tubman, who was a spy who used symbols and codes during the American Civil War, her face will be on the $20 bill in a few years, I think 2020. So that's just an aside relevant to the idea of codes and spies, intelligence networks. If you look at The Secret Doctrine, Book 2, Part 2, HPB dedicates 181 pages to the archaic symbols of world religions to show how significant symbols are. And then if we go to the ancient source, where it states that, but such is the mysterious power of occult symbolism and the facts which have actually occupied countless generations of seers and prophets to marshal, to set down and explain in a bewildering series of evolutionary progress, are all recorded on a few pages of geometrical signs and glyphs. Now, hypothetically, here, this is just one page of symbols. But relating to what was just stated, a few pages this is not the secret doctrine, but this is Isis Unveiled, but just to give you an idea, a few pages of this will explain what this is all about, to show you the power of symbols again. Theosophical symbols, which we hear readily, most of us readily are familiar with. In this article called Symbols and Keys and Theosophical Symbolism, it's stated that the number 7 has ever since the Theosophical Society was founded, November 17th, 1875. The number 7 has played a prominent part in all of its affairs, and as usual, the symbols which particularly relate or pertain to the society are in number 7. And it speaks of the seal itself, 1, the serpent biting its tail, 2, the 3rd, the Gnostic cross near the serpent's head, 4th, the interlaced triangles, 5th, the crux asana, 6th, the pen of the society composed of the crux asana entwined by a serpent forming together, TS, and 7th, Om, the sacred Vedic word. And to give one, if you see you're new, Mehmet, if you aren't familiar with the Theosophical symbol, here is the Theosophical symbol itself. So symbols are all around us. One can say that the phenomenal world itself is a symbol, because behind the phenomena is the noumena. So what the whole of phenomena, it can be regarded as symbolic. Now, moving, because we've got to deal with mythology, but moving right along to deal with two symbols that are readily available for everyone's understanding, I chose to just briefly deal with the idea of number and light. But before we do go further, just to read a few thoughts out of this page of this article, Cipher and Symbol. It states that the occult idea of truth is that it is only known through direct experience, egoic contact, meaning that symbols are living. It's not some academic. You got to get out of your head initially and then blend head and heart together, because it's a living process. You can't just look at it intellectually. The symbol sort of draws you in. And it says the unit of communications is the idea rather than a definite word. Basically, they're trying to communicate through an idea for you to get the idea. It says the reader of symbols, we say, is in the quest of a living truth. It says, why do wise men employ symbolic means of communication? Surely it is not simply to hide their secrets from the profane. The primary explanation, doubtless, is that symbols are often the most accurate way to convey profound philosophical ideas, and further that they are used to arouse the courage that is needed for independent discovery on the part of the disciple. And just wanted to share that. But going back to symbols, two symbols that we're all familiar with, number and light. Now, figures and numbers are the key to the esoteric system. The science of numbers is so sacred that, indeed, and so important in the study of occultism or theosophy, that the subject can hardly be skimmed, and even in such a large work as The Secret Doctrine. It is on the hierarchies and correct numbers of these beings invisible to us, except upon rare occasion, that the mystery of the whole universe is built. There is no chance evolution, nor is any so-called normal appearance of cosmic phenomena due to haphazard circumstances. The smallest as the most immense creations are to be distinguished from each other by their quantities and qualities, their dimensions, their forces, and their attributes, all begotten by number. God is a number endowed with motion. And finally, he says here, the reign of Aristotle in the only exact and infallible science in the world of sciences, mathematics, which proceed from number, has ended. That of Plato, who began with universals, as opposed to that of Aristotle, who rose from particulars, is now opening. Today the question is being asked, do numbers and geometrical figures represent to human consciousness the laws and actions in the divine mind, that of number, the ruling deity? The teachers reply, they do most assuredly. So, and then just to deal primarily with that of light, it says, it is that light which condenses into the forms of the lords of being. So these, says, let's see here, there are three kinds of lights in occultism, as in the Kabbalah: the abstract and absolute light, which is darkness, the light of the manifested, unmanifested, called by some the Logos, and thirdly, the latter light reflected in the Dayan Korans, the monologi, the Elohim, who in their turn shed it on the objective universe. So we see how light is symbolic. We say this person is enlightened, the light of the silvery moon, stuff like that. These symbols that are used, and there's no way around them. Number and light, two very important symbols. But to move to mythology, just this quote by H.P.B. He says, no mythological story, no traditional event in the folklore of a people has ever at any time been purely fictional. Every one of these such narratives has an actual historical lining to it. She states here that to comprehend the whole subject, we must recognize that myths convey cosmic and anthropological facts, just as fables convey truths about the social behavior of men and women. Similarly, fairy tales reveal one aspect of the human subconscious, the psychic nature of every man. The history of the early races of humanity, the former continents, their civilizations, and their cataclysmic changes, the deeply occult truths as to man's evolution and the final goal, secrets of nature, scientific laws, moral verities, the profound religions of our forefathers. The key to all of these and other problems which today puzzle our greatest intellects is to be found in ancient myths, in legends, in folklore. In this particular article by Max Muller, not by Max Muller, from our literature, called The Hidden Science in World Myths, it starts by talking about how the Orientalists, people like Max Muller, great Orientalists, he quotes saying that myths are the disease of language. Pardon me. Whereas Gerald Massey, another great Orientalist, takes the opposite view, stating that he was an Egyptologist, and he found the relationship between what some of the Egyptians were saying. It says here too, just because myth and symbols are so interrelated, the Westerner, because they couldn't understand the psychological mindset of the Easterner, and because of that, he looked upon the symbols and the myths in a dead letter sense. Thus, we come up with this notion of talking trees, talking serpents, tree of knowledge, and we've just accepted those things without the deeper meaning. And this is reflected in what's stated right here. The ingenuity of the construction of great scriptures of the world is such that they have two aspects. One is the outer vesture in myths and symbols, conveying the teachings on ethics and rules of righteous living for the common people necessary for their happiness. For their happiness and spiritual life. The other is the knowledge of the mysteries of nature and the spiritual life hidden between the symbols and the myths for the instruction of those who are fit to enter upon the arduous path of self-knowledge and enlightenment. Okay? And it speaks of how these myths and these symbols are sevenfold. There are 7 keys. And these keys are, said, each symbol or mythical narration could yield, must yield at least 7 mysteries. The 7 mysteries could be broadly said to pertain to 1, the cosmic; 2, the divine or spiritual level; 3, the psychic or astral level; the psychological level, next, the astronomical or astrological or not or, but and astrological, the anthropological, and the physiological, each having in its turn 7 subdivisions. It says among the highest niches alone, it is said to have mastered all 7 keys of nature and are in full possession of the 7 keys. Well, they stay here. HPB shows in her discourses on ancient myths that ancient myths contain knowledge of the physical, moral, and spiritual aspects of nature, law, natural laws, and embraced of both the visible and invisible nature. So it says here, the universal language spoken of is a language of symbols and emblems in the form of geometrical symbols, glyphs, numbers, mythical legends, and allegories, all of which are mutably convertible. They are, it's just intertwining to come up with stories, as you see, Jason and the Argonauts, Odysseus and his journey. And this gets to now the third part of the presentation of how does the myth apply to the individual? It seems as if these are some distance. It should be mentioned also Plato, that we know as, with those who study theosophy, the great initiate in the ancient world. In the book The Republic, book 10 speaks about the myth of and how in that particular myth, reincarnation and karma is definitely presented. Is this hero who in this battle, well, it's right here. I don't want to just go too far. But he's killed, and he's on the battlefield, but his body does not decay. Interesting. And when I guess the guys are coming around picking up the bodies, wakes up. And he's just like an everyday guy. 12 days later, he's still intact. And so he begins to talk about how he's gone to the other world. And he says that he was sent back to let those people know what the other world is like. And he explains how, what his visions are. His visions that he sees different people at different stages, meaning that it's not like a Christian heaven. Everybody is at one stage, but everybody's at certain levels of development. He sees people ascending to earth, people descending from heaven, and visions like that. And what comes to mind is karma again, karma and reincarnation, for sure. So that's in that particular myth of But to bring back how myths relate to us every day. Now, we have, on a personal level, dragons. Dragons could be challenges, problems, baggage that we have, habits that we have to wrestle with, fear, be a part of our baggage. Just think of all the lower nature and its baggage or its attendants. And then you make up your mind that you have to go to the doctor. Can you imagine to get a tooth pulled or have surgery? So instead of looking at yourself as being a victim, one can become, in myths, the hero. And then the challenges become sort of differently looked at, viewed. And that's on a personal level of just every day relating these myths and you on your mythic journey in your day-to-day life. And on a more higher level, as we have a lower nature and a higher nature, the book that was read from is The Voice of the Silence. And that could be, again, pointed to as it is most indeed the journey that those who desire to go back to the source from where they've come, the source, to God, whatever you want to call it, to truth. It's that journey that one undertakes, and one meets upon that journey traps, demons, giants. But these demons and these giants and all these propensities and proclivities are within oneself. They pop out. And that's the struggle. That's the war. That's Odysseus, and we know, and Jason and Argonauts, Hercules, and those myths, how they have had to conquer and struggle against forces, the Hydra, the woman with Medusa, and all these. Well, we all have our Medusas as well. So that's the attempt to apply myths every day to our situation here, as well as looking at them spiritually and then also on a mundane level. So with that, I'll close up and open for questions or comments or suggestions. Yes.
You said that we can take the dragon. You said that we can take the dragon for our own baggage.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon actually is represented as symbol of wisdom. So can you please comment a
Oh,
little bit?
well, if yeah, that's true. Uh, it's stated that the adepts, the initiates, the world over, have been viewed as dragons of wisdoms, the serpent, but in the sense that how Venus, the star, Lucifer, has been turned into a serpent, a dragon, a negative, a force, something like that. It's just duality again. Our nature is dual, and so this dragon, if a person is not initiated into this sort of explanation of things, would view a dragon initially as a fearful sight, something to fight against. You know, all the myths, you got to slay the dragon, you run away from the dragon, okay, for whatever reason. Now, if you're qualified, the dragon could be your friend. In some of the Harry Potter movies, certain creatures that are fearful to others, if your nature is in harmony, one with, I guess, all of nature, then the dragon can become your friend, in other words. So, not the, what was that dragon in modern times? Puff the Magic Dragon?
The caduceus has two serpents, right?
Mm-hmm. And the swan.
Representing the, probably more like the physical aspect of man, and the one that has to be healed by the, sometimes their wings at the top. Did I get that right?
Well, it's always two, and it could be the duality again. Yeah.
Apathy, sympathy, and antipathy, and so forth.
Well, yeah, whatever. The rod. It could be the body itself, you know, the spinal cord,
Right.
spinal column. There are numerous applications that could be applied to these symbols again. It's so vast.
And the position himself is like the serpent of wisdom. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
So these serpents are sort of a duality. But
Yeah. But in the Western psyche, though, it's interesting that if you go down to the Washington Monument and right before the elevator, they have that same. They got two Egyptian iconography there, two serpents, and even inside the Capitol building in the old chamber, there's serpents there because the serpent was a symbol of wisdom, you know. But interesting enough, in a theological sense, the serpent is a negative. You know, you get a negative view of the serpent itself, except for initially the serpent does not lie. See, they put the weight on the serpent. When the serpent tells Eve that you should surely not die, that your eyes should be open, he's laying something on her. He's telling her the truth. And then after they eat the fruit, they don't die like that. The serpent say, your eyes should be open and you should be as gods. Literally that. And then there's this voice that says later, behold, the man has become as us, to know good and evil. So the serpent did not lie. But that's the bad rap that Venus gets, or Lucifer. You know, and then there's, even in Revelation, Jesus refers to himself as the morning star. So if you want to tie that be logical connection, he's identifying himself with Lucifer. And there was even a pope named Lucifer. So it's all a mixed baggage of stuff that you got to really sift through. And it's
well, in one of the pamphlets, I think it says that Lucifer, there are two. There's Lucifer and there's Ahriman. And Lucifer is the more light-bringing, the higher one.
mm,
And Ahriman is the lower in nature that came in with the solidification of the earth, actually.
mm. And then basically the word devil and all this, the devil myth and all that, how that comes back, comes in Satan. It basically means adversary, contrast. To be here, you have spirit and matter. You learn through contrast, through conflict. And that's those two opposites that are within the individual. We're both divine and devilish. Okay? So whatever wins out depends upon the Krishna within, if you listen to the Krishna within, the God within.
But the devil actually is a double conversion, he says in another writing, because evil is minus D. She said that the church transformed it by doing two conversions, evil and devil, joining the D to the evil, making it a devil.
Mm. Mm. Well, let me see if there are no questions. I don't know if I.
Can you mention anything about the zodiac?
I did not because I think we just had it a couple of weeks ago. But in this the book that I just is it in here? Yeah, Symbol and Keys, this by Mr. Judge, under the title Two Lost Keys, the Bhagavad Gita and the Zodiac he talks about here, and the Zodiac. Just right off the cuff, there are various zodiacs to begin with, and I don't want to just, because I haven't prepared mentally, instead of rambling, can you contribute something about the zodiac, as you know?
Well, it's a system of symbols
Mhm.
that has existed since time immemorial and describes the journey of humanity, and it can be pretty detailed.
Mm-hmm. And that brings to mind also, since you talk about the zodiac and you talk about stars, and then astrology, as was mentioned, is one astronomical and astrological. And it's interesting that in the Christian story, not just to belittle the Christians, because we're in a Christian nation per se. No, we're not in a Christian nation. We're in a nation where Christianity is practiced. But just for a moment, in the Christian story, the three wise men followed the stars. So there was some mention or some allusion to reading the stars. But afterwards, when Christianity becomes a state religion, reading the stars is condemned. Astrology is looked upon as devilish, coming back to use your word, Tunjai. So it's just, again, transition of this knowledge that the ancients knew and used and could manipulate for successful purposes. Some kind of way when the church comes about, it's transformed and is put in the background and called pseudoscience, etc., or negative, or devil worship, something like that. All those sciences, all those ancient sciences.
Draco is a constellation that spans nearly half of the zodiac itself, which is a dragon.
Mm.
And some esoteric Christians believe that Jesus healed by means of a certain constellation that was in the sky at that time,
Mm.
the time that he was living, that he was born under. That one person he went to heal, he said something to the effect of at sunset, I will heal you of your blindness or something like that. He put in a certain time because he was able to work this through the constellation that would appear at night.
Well, there's definitely a science to all of what is done by those who know, the initiates and all that. There's the science of the color, the sound, the timing of the sun, the moon, all it's a one total knowledge, doctrine. Certain times of day, to eat, to sleep. It's a totality. That's why Theosophy is stated. It's the summation of all or accumulation of all the knowledge that has been accumulated so far on this earth. That's it's enough for. That's why it says in the Declaration, it is so deep. It doesn't have time for side issues. This is a science, as I read in the ancient source, it's the accumulated wisdom of the ages, not just a few years, a couple of centuries, but we go back since man has been on this planet, and they have codified it and checked it and retested and checked it again. These adepts, and so they know from the moment a child is born, what star that child is under, what planetary spirits, and all that. So, indeed. Tunjai?
I just wanted to say that the zodiac is important in the sense that it signifies 12 transformations of Earth. And HPV says in the, I think it's in the ISIS, that change, that transformation that comes about is our historical existence, humanity's historical existence. And we have to remember that the zodiac covers a 360-degree circle, and you were talking about symbology, and that it is divided into 12 sections. And when we remember that HPV came for the Aquarian age, humanity is in one of those signs about 2,100 years. And depending how the Earth and the Sun is revolving, HPV says that it brings us into new spaces where the influence of the constellations can become very apparent in the development of humanity.
And you notice how numbers, 12 again, is very significant. Jesus had 12 disciples. And there's something else about this 12. Everything is purposeful. And that gets back down to, we have 3 branches of government, an odd number, and then the triangle being 3. And 13 original colonies, the odd number again, the 10 plus the 3 again. So, and keeping in mind the influence of the adepts, the birth of this nation coming up, and this nation is is founded on principles instead of a being, the principles of law. The Constitution, and so there again, law again, instead of chance or some being arbitrarily dictating this and that. So it's a universal law that they understood, a law of principles, universal law and principles, and so this nation is based upon law and principles, and we have principles within ourselves. So that's the harmony again of man with the universe, or the soul with the universe, or the soul with the spirit, whatever word you want to use.
Man's 7 principles can be...
They're correlated with the universal principles.
Yeah, but with the U.S., the principles embodied in the U.S.
I see what you... Well, just like, okay...
It seems there could be some kind of...
connection. Well, take Plato. Plato's Republic, okay? This is a republic, okay? And that is one book that you can refer to as being a system of government. The education of the philosopher king, government, stuff like that. So if the nation state can be constructed and the citizens of the nation can bring about certain attributes of the citizen, and it could harmonize, because you have citizens, okay? You have a society, and the society is built on harmony and the upper, in harmony. I can see how it aligns with, yeah. Well, Tunya.
But a society is built up of families and individuals. If the family does not exhibit moral living, how is it going to be translated to society, and what kind of government would we have representing that society?
Well, you look at, you have dictators and individuals like that who pop up, and that's an idea of greed and the accumulation of wealth, whereby if the ones at the top, you got, since you come into this sociological discussion, or bring up the classes and the masses, political terms, and the masses always try to emulate and imitate the upper classes. So, and the upper classes take advantage of the lower classes or the middle classes, and so that's why the society itself needs a philosophical basis, starting with the declaration of interdependence instead of independence, and through that interdependence, you have moral verities coming in about you got to get away with this notion of survival of the fittest and this one life, this struggle for life and stuff like that, and replace that with axioms that the wise ones know. You got to inculcate that into society, educate society, where the whole planet is living and affected, the environment. So you have to have these philosopher kings, people who are educated in these, in universal brotherhood and stuff like that. And from that, move on. And then the family, you got to show an individual, I don't care if he's from the lowest level, that, old man, you own nothing. You don't even own your wife. These guys in today's world shooting up a woman or a guy, I can't have you, you're not mine anymore, bang, bang, bang. You don't own your body. You don't know how you're going to own somebody else. Your children are not your children. They come through you, but not from you. So it's this notion of a basic core of morality. We got to turn it around and show people that, no, you don't have a soul. You are the soul. And that takes a heart, like Plato say, the ardent turning of the soul. That's meditation back to the divine. And you have to morality is something that I got mine, you get yours. I can shoot you and get away with that. We don't have a sense that the moral law is real. It's sort of abstract. I can get mine. I can rip his wallet and I'm gone. I can get away with it. So you have to some kind of way show people that you don't get away with nothing. Law is absolute, and I think right there, that's where the moral stuff, so you can start inculcating it. Yeah.
The other part of that point is unity. If you know that the other is part of yourself, would you hurt him?
Well, you hurt yourself. But see, there again, you have no sense of what self is. See, we're in our lower selves, and our lower self, like they say, it'll goad you to death. As long as you are satisfying that craving, that lust, and all that stuff there, it rules, it dominates, and then only afterwards, just like in a moment of anger, you may throw something out there, and then after you've calmed down, oh, what have I done? That is gone, but the words have been printed on the astral, and so it's over there. So it's a teaching. Like you say, it starts with a family. It takes a village to raise a child. Those kinds of things, unity, seeing that the other is you are the other.
So this myth and symbols, and we were talking about principles and so forth. That's what's before us. That's our guide to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Is the difference between these principles as we envision them as correct and so forth, and secret doctrine and so forth, and what we're experiencing on the street. And it's getting to get, it's a constant reminder, if we pay attention to them, where we need to be going.
Okay, I can see your comment. And what I think Tujar just mentioned unity, and Herb, that paper that you gave me on comparative mythology, it's this notion, comparative, that word has to be included in our search and daily conversations with people. Comparative religion, comparative literature, comparative whatever, because it shows the similarities. It's just like if you look at the comparative myths, the virgin birth, of the Savior, all these saviors, there's from birth to death, there's a similarity. You just in the ISIS there, being born, being pursued by a tyrant, being killed by a tree or something like that, virgin births and all that. And then if you can see the similarities, something's up. Then you can start pointing back to the symbolic language. Why are these guys so similar? So that's the key of being able to compare. And just like a medical student, you in an anatomy class, here's a Chinese, here's an Eskimo, here's an African, Bantu. All of them got hearts, all of them got spinal cords. So we're all the same. So we got to get away from the form and deal with the character using the form. And
modify those likes and dislikes.
yeah, yeah, Tunja.
Just another fact that we'd like to Kathy's question about the zodiac. There's a statement in the Secret Doctrine where HPV says that the Indian nation was the one that actually had astronomy based on these principles that we were talking about, which is from immemorial time, because they had the signs and the key to the signs. But what she says in that statement is that I think it is the Dendera zodiac that has gone through 3 sidereal cycles, which is 75,000 years. So the zodiacal signs are very, very old.
Oh,
And all nations, I think also she refers to the Chinese nation having an astronomy that was based on true glyphs.
Mm.
And they knew what the key was. And she mentions Lao Tse and Confucius and the codification of those rules into law, and how the government was to be conducted. And Mr. Judd says that it's because that China has moved away from those principles that in the future they will sink. They will not exist.
yeah. And that comes to mind when you mentioned the Native Americans. I was thinking about, too, also the Dogon in Kenya, that particular tribe. It comes out how they knew as a certain planet or star system that they were aware of, and some years ago they were aware of this, and now today's physicists and astronomers have found out that they were in fact right with what they were doing, right, or understanding. They knew it, and so it's baffling. These guys out of Cambridge and Oxford and Palmer laboratories, how do these guys, so-called primitive people, know what they knew? So, yeah, without the telescope and stuff like that. So, yeah. All right. Well, that being said, our time, we'll just finish early. Our time is up, so thanks for coming.
Thank you. Next thing to talk is the 3 qualities of nature in one. Join the center. Thank you.